Hey everybody. Yesterday you answered some questions on this passage, Showdown in Little Rock. And today I'm going to talk to you on this video a little bit about the questions you answered. And you need to take notes while you're watching this video. So I'm going to need you to pause and get out a piece of paper and something to write with so you can take some notes, and the notes that you're taking will be on the test tips I give as I'm going through this activity. So pause right now, get out a piece of paper and something to write with. Okay, so hopefully you just did what I asked you to do. Got out a piece of paper and something to write with. And again, you're going to take notes on the testing tips that I give you. And the reason you're going to do that is because the next activity you're going to do is you're going to make a poster of test tips that will be hanging in the hallway. So each of you will make a poster of test tips, and then we're going to hang them in the hallway. All right, so this is the passage that you read yesterday and answered questions on. If you still have this, go ahead and get it out. Some of you asked yesterday if you needed to keep it, and I said that you could put it in recycling. If you kept it, go ahead and get that out and take a minute to review it. If you didn't keep it, hit pause, read the part you can see on your screen right now, or do a quick review of it, and then come back, and I'm going to go through this passage so that you can read it on the screen if you didn't keep your copy. Go ahead and hit pause and read if you need to read it from the screen. Okay, so you should have been able to review the passage as I moved it on the screen or on your own copy of it. Now let's move on to the questions. First of all, this first set of 4 questions, they were complex and difficult. I would hope that you got 1 and 3 right, but 2 and 4 were pretty difficult. If you didn't get those, I wouldn't worry too much about it. They were very complex, but 1 and 3 were basically inferencing or main idea questions, and you should have been able to get those right if you paid attention to the reading and used process of elimination. Let's talk for just a minute, though, about question number 2. Just a test-taking tip here. Look for connections between answer choices on different questions. It's possible that the answer to one question can help you answer another question. That happens sometimes, or sometimes one question in and of itself can help you answer another question. All right, so here, number 1, which of the following best identifies a central idea of the text? As you know, central idea, main idea, and even objective summary are pretty much the same thing. If you got this one wrong, if you got number 1 wrong, it was going to be pretty difficult for you to get number 2 right. But if you got number 1 right, you should have been able to get number 2 right. So the question, which of the following best identifies a central idea of the text? The answer here was D. The Little Rock 9 helped break racial barriers in American education despite great opposition. I want you to notice that there's kind of 2 parts to this, the breaking of racial barriers and the opposition. And the passage did cover both of those things. If you look at the other answer choices, you'll see that they're kind of one part. Eisenhower used Little Rock crisis as an excuse. That was a detail, or that's related to a detail in the passage, but that doesn't cover everything that the passage was about. B, segregationists made solid arguments against integration. Okay, a solid argument is a good argument, so B was just wrong. That was not in the passage. The passage was not saying that segregationists made good arguments. So you should have been able to eliminate that pretty quickly. And C, the public crisis in Little Rock made many Americans determined to have the federal government enforce segregation. You might have been able to infer that from the passage, but again, it certainly wasn't the biggest idea. So the only really good answer choice was D. Now, if you got that right, D, the Little Rock Nine helped break racial barriers. That should have helped you answer number 2, because D for number 2 is the right answer, and D says both black and white children were in attendance when the schools reopened, and that shows breaking racial barriers. All right, so the test tip I'm giving you for 1 and 2 is this. Sometimes one question or the answers to one question can help you answer another question. So don't hesitate to go back to a question if reading the next question or a question further on gives you some insight. Sometimes it's the answers, sometimes it's the question itself, but the whole test sort of works together. So if you get an idea from one question that helps you with another one, move back and forth through the test. All right, so next, I'm not going to talk very specifically about these 2 questions to keep this video from getting too long, but what I do want to say here is that these answer choices are very complex. The questions are complex, the answer choices are complex, so here is your second test tip. When you have complex questions or answers, be sure to use process of elimination. Process of elimination will be so important on this test. And one thing you can look for in questions and answer choices to eliminate are answer choices that are too general or too specific. So let's just look at the question up here. Which statement best describes the relationship between the Arkansas state government and the federal government? When you're looking for a right answer here, be sure that you're thinking about these key ideas. You know, that's another test tip actually. Find the key ideas in the question. See how I've marked them here? On the end of course test, you'll be able to use a highlighter. So find those key ideas in the questions and make sure that the answers that you choose actually answer those key ideas. And make sure, this was the original tip number 2, make sure that you eliminate answers that are either too general or too specific. All right, so moving on. Next tip, remember that author's purpose questions are asking you why the author wrote the passage. But again, it's not about what was going on in the author's heart. That's not what it's about. Author's purpose questions are about why the author wrote the passage, the way the author wrote the passage in terms of conveying something to an audience. Was the author trying to outline something, explain something, provide information, argue, provide background information? So remember, another test tip, the difference between main idea and author's purpose. Main idea is what the author is conveying. Author's purpose is why the author wrote it in the first place. What was the author's reason for writing it in the first place? Okay, so just in general, The most important thing that I've said here, the most important test tip is you have to read the questions carefully. You have to read all of the answer choices and read them carefully. And then you need to use process of elimination. I cannot say this enough. These kinds of reading comprehension tests are not meant for you to be able to just recognize a right answer. These tests are designed to require you to use process of elimination. So make sure you use that tool. Okay? All right. You're going to go ahead and stop this video in just a second. And I will have already shown you where some materials are. And I want you to get those materials. And then you're going to make a poster of test tips. You can bring in some that we've talked about at other points, or even some that you've heard from other English teachers in the past. But make sure you include something from this video. Do a good job. Make it look nice. And then we're going to hang them in the hallway. Good job.